Hello, everyone. Today, I want to tell you a story about my life. My name is Lily, and I am 28 years old. I have been through a lot, and I think my story will teach you something important about love, trust, and heartbreak. This is not just a story. It is my life. It's a story about how I met my husband, how we fell in love, and how things changed after marriage. I will tell you about our dating life and how perfect everything seemed at the beginning. So, let's start. The beginning. I still remember the day I met Jack. It was 5 years ago. I was working at a small cafe in New York City. Jack walked in wearing a black suit, holding a leather briefcase. He looked confident and charming. I was at the counter, and he smiled at me. His smile was warm and friendly, the kind that could make anyone's day better. He ordered a cappuccino, and when I handed it to him, he said, "Thank you. By the way, you have beautiful eyes." I blushed. No one had ever said that to me before. Jack started coming to the cafe every day. Sometimes he brought flowers for me, small ones like daisies or tulips. At first, I thought he was just being kind, but then he asked me out for dinner. I was nervous, but excited. He took me to a cozy Italian restaurant. Over pasta and wine, we talked for hours. He told me he worked in marketing and loved his job. He listened to me like no one else ever had. He made me feel special. For the next 2 years, Jack and I were inseparable. He would surprise me with handwritten notes, take me on long drives, and bring me my favorite chocolates. On weekends, we went to the beach or watched movies at his place. One evening, while we were walking in the park, Jack stopped and said, "Lily, you are the best thing that has ever happened to me. I can't imagine my life without you." Then he got down on one knee and took out a ring. "Will you marry me?" he asked. Tears filled my eyes and I said, "Yes." It was the happiest moment of my life. We got married 6 months later. It was a beautiful summer day. I wore a white lace gown, and Jack looked handsome in a navy blue suit. All our friends and family were there. We danced under the stars, laughing and holding each other close. Jack whispered in my ear, "I promise to love you forever." I believed him. For the first 2 years, our marriage was like a dream. We bought a small apartment and decorated it together. Jack loved cooking, so we spent many evenings in the kitchen, laughing and trying new recipes. On Sundays, we would sleep in late and have breakfast in bed. He was my best friend, my partner, my everything. I trusted him completely. But life is not always what it seems. Slowly, things started to change. Jack became distant, spending more time at work and less time with me. At first, I thought he was just busy. But then I started noticing things that didn't feel right. This is where my story begins to take a different turn. At first, the changes were small. He would come home later than usual and say, "Sorry, Lily. I had a lot of work at the office." I believed him. Why wouldn't I? He was my husband, the man who promised to love me forever. But then, those late nights became more frequent. He stopped asking me how my day was. Our dinners together became silent. Jack was always on his phone, texting someone, smiling at messages that weren't mine. One evening, I asked him, "Jack, who are you always texting?" He looked at me, surprised, and said, "It's just work stuff, Lily. You don't have to worry." He kissed my forehead and walked away. But I did worry. Something didn't feel right. One Saturday, Jack said he had to go to the office for an important meeting. It was strange because he never worked on weekends. I decided to clean the house to distract myself. As I was folding laundry, I found a receipt in his jeans pocket. It was for an expensive dinner at a restaurant we had never been to. The date on the receipt was last Tuesday, the night Jack told me he was working late. My heart sank. Maybe it's just a client dinner, I told myself, trying to calm the storm in my head. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. A few weeks later, I woke up in the middle of the night to the sound of Jack's phone vibrating. He was asleep beside me, so I reached for the phone to silence it. The screen lit up, and I saw a message. "Miss you already. Can't wait to see you again." My hands started shaking. I couldn't breathe. Who was sending this message to my husband? I put the phone back on the nightstand and stared at the ceiling, my mind racing. The next morning, I couldn't hold it in any longer. Over breakfast, I asked him, "Jack, are you seeing someone else?" He looked up from his coffee, startled. "What? No, Lily. Why would you even think that?" I pulled out the receipt and placed it on the table. "Then explain this." Jack's face turned pale. He stammered, It's nothing. Just a dinner with a colleague." "Which colleague sends you messages like this at night?" I said, showing him the text. He was silent. That silence spoke louder than any words ever could. Jack finally admitted it. There was another woman. Her name was Clara. She worked in his office. "It just happened," he said. "I didn't mean to hurt you." I felt like the ground beneath me had disappeared. The man I loved, the man I trusted with my whole heart, had betrayed me. "How long has this been going on?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. 6 months, he said, not meeting my eyes. 6 months. For 6 months, he had been lying to me, sneaking around, and sharing his love with someone else. The days that followed were the hardest of my life. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. Everywhere I looked, I saw reminders of Jack. Our wedding photo on the wall, the coffee mug he used every morning, the couch where we used to cuddle and watch movies. I cried until I couldn't cry anymore. My heart felt shattered into a million pieces. One evening, I sat alone in the bedroom, holding my wedding ring in my hand. I thought about all the promises Jack had made to me. I promised to love you forever. But those promises meant nothing now. I kept asking myself, why wasn't I enough? What did I do wrong? Could I have done something to stop this? But then I realized something important. It wasn't my fault. Jack's choices were his own. As the saying goes, once a cheater, always a cheater. The hardest moment came when I saw them together. I was walking to the grocery store when I spotted Jack sitting at an outdoor cafe with Clara. He was laughing, holding her hand, looking at her the way he used to look at me. It felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. I turned around and walked away, tears streaming down my face. That night, as I sat alone in the apartment, I realized I had a choice. I could let this pain destroy me, or I could find a way to rebuild my life. I looked at myself in the mirror and said, "Lily, you deserve better." I sat alone in our small apartment, the silence pressing against me like a weight I couldn't lift. Jack had packed his things and left. The emptiness was overwhelming, but it was also a chance to find myself again. I didn't know where to start. The man I thought was my forever had broken every promise, shattered every dream. But as I sat there, staring at the ring he had left behind, a thought came to me. This isn't the end of my story. The first thing I did was pack away all the reminders of Jack, our photos, the gifts he gave me, the notes he used to write. It was painful, like ripping off a bandage, but I needed to clear the space to make room for something new. Next, I decided to focus on myself. For too long, I had been living for Jack, putting his needs before mine. Now it was time to ask, what does Lily want? I started small. Every morning, I would get up, make a cup of coffee, and write in my journal. I wrote about my pain, my fears, and my hopes for the future. Writing became my therapy. I also started going for long walks in the park. At first, I avoided the places Jack and I used to go. But then I realized, why should I let those memories control me? So I walked through those places, one step at a time, reclaiming them for myself. One day, during one of my walks, I saw a little girl trying to fly a kite. The kite kept falling, but she didn't give up. She laughed, picked it up, and tried again. Watching her, I thought, if she can keep trying, so can I. I decided to take a painting class. I had always loved art, but never had the time for it. The first time I picked up a brush, I felt something shift inside me. It was like I was pouring all my pain and anger onto the canvas. One of my paintings, a stormy sea with a small, shining sun in the corner, became my favorite. It reminded me that even in the darkest moments, there is always hope. I also reconnected with old friends. I had pushed them away during my marriage, too focused on Jack to notice how much I needed them. When I told them what had happened, they hugged me, cried with me, and reminded me that I was not alone. One day, I came across a quote that changed everything for me. Holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. I realized I needed to forgive Jack, not for his sake, but for mine. Holding on to the pain was only hurting me. So I wrote him a letter. I didn't send it, but I wrote everything I wanted to say. I forgive you, Jack, not because what you did was okay, but because I deserve peace. After writing that letter, I felt lighter. As the months went by, I started to love myself again. I looked in the mirror and saw a strong, beautiful woman staring back at me. I wasn't the same Lily who had cried herself to sleep every night. I was someone new, someone stronger. I started setting goals for myself. I wanted to travel, learn new skills, and meet new people. I even started a blog to share my journey, hoping it might inspire others who were going through similar pain. One evening, as I was writing a blog post, a thought struck me. Sometimes life breaks you, so it can rebuild you into someone stronger. Pain is a powerful teacher. It showed me my strength, my resilience, and my worth. It taught me that I didn't need anyone else to complete me. I was already whole. A year after Jack left, I took a solo trip to Italy. I stood in front of the Colosseum, a place I had always dreamed of visiting, and felt a sense of freedom I had never known before. I smiled, not because my life was perfect, but because I had finally learned how to be happy on my own. Motivational lessons for everyone 1. You are stronger than you think. Life will knock you down, but every time you rise, you become more powerful. 2. Pain is a teacher, not a punishment. Use it to grow and become the best version of yourself. 3. Let go of what hurts you. Forgiveness is not about them. It's about freeing yourself. 4. Love yourself first. You can't pour from an empty cup. Take care of your heart, mind, and soul. 5. Your story isn't over. Every ending is a new beginning. And remember, the comeback is always stronger than the setback. This is the story of how I lost myself, found myself, and became someone I am proud to be. Life isn't about waiting for the storm to pass. It's about learning to dance in the rain. Thank you for joining me on this journey to learn English. If you enjoyed the story and found it helpful, please give it a like and hit the subscribe button to stay updated with more tips and stories. Let's keep learning and growing together.